Okay.
Okay.
Now let's get right down to business.
When were you born?
When was I born? November 21st, 1926.
What do you remember about your early childhood?
My early childhood was very different than what your childhood is. I can tell you that. Because way back then, we didn't have school buses. And where I lived in Chelsea, we didn't have electricity. We didn't have a telephone. People had to come to Greenfield to use a telephone. What do you think of that?
That'd be bad.
Pretty bad, right? Yes. And I had to walk about, must have been 2 miles to school. We had no plows plowing our roads. They used to call the men out. They said it was calling the men out to shovel. That's how we went to school.
Wow. What was the occupation of your mother and father?
Of my which father?
Your mother and your father.
My mother was a homemaker. I could tell you a very sad story about my mother because she was what was called a home child. And a home child is someone that came here from England, was sent. The Canadian government paid $2 a child. And they were sent here because they were in orphanages or they had no parents and they roamed the streets. And these children were sent here and they were expected to work, the boys on the farms, and the girls were supposed to do housework. And my mother was 12 when she came here. My father was a miner, a gold miner. That doesn't mean he was rich, because he couldn't keep the gold he mined. But he made money that he could provide for his family.
Pretty cool. Describe the house that you grew up in.
The house that I grew up in. Earl,
Move.
Susan,
She's outside.
you get.
Go over there, please. Thank you.
Susan, you go lie down. Are they gonna hear that? Now you ask me what? I was gonna tell you about my father, right?
No, the house that you grew up in.
Oh, the house that I grew up in, it was a big farmhouse. I say it was a big farmhouse. It had two finished bedrooms upstairs and what we called a rough room. But because we had 3 boys, I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, so that was 7 of us. And so sometimes we had to put beds up in the rough room, we called it. We had one finished bedroom downstairs, and we had a kitchen and a dining living room, I guess you'd call it today. It was all one room. We didn't have any running water, and as I said previously, we didn't have electricity for many years. I was grown up and teaching when we got electricity there.
What was it like during the holidays?
What was it like during holidays? Christmas was different than Christmas today. We didn't get big gifts, just a dinner plate. My mother would, I don't know if this was an English custom, but my mother would put out dinner plates for us on the dining room table and put a piece of paper with our name on it. And Santa Claus would leave us candy, that we would get an orange, about the only time of the year that we get an orange. Can you believe that? but we got nuts. And we would also, the whole family would get coconuts that you had to crack the shell and they drink the milk and eat the meat of the coconut was very good. We didn't get presents, a lot of presents, but we'd have a real Christmas tree with homemade ornaments of different sorts. Yeah.
Well, really, Christmas isn't just about the presents, right?
It is today, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's. Hello? I have to call you back, honey. I have a guest here that's asking. Good. Bye. Okay, now we get back to business.
Yeah. Any more holidays that you want to talk about?
Well, Easter time was kind of a funny holiday back then. Everybody tried to see, well, my brothers especially tried to see how many eggs they could eat on Christmas, on Easter holidays. Can you believe that? They would boil eggs and fry eggs and poach eggs and do everything else to keep count of the eggs they could eat in one day, because that was the custom back then, I guess. And it was something we had because we had our own hens and rooster and all those things.
What were your usual meals?
Usual meals? Well, we had the usual 3 meals a day. We always had food in our house. That was a good thing because some people were very, very poor. We weren't rich people, but we weren't extremely poor because, as I told you, my father worked and my older brothers worked in the mines too. So the meals were just plain, ordinary. You'd have a cooked porridge for breakfast. That would be it for sure thing. And then, of course, when we went to school, we took a lunch. And then supper time, we'd have our main meal of the day. And it would be like I would cook today. We didn't have hamburger. I don't ever remember seeing hamburger back in my early days. I guess it didn't come into being yet.
What were your jobs around the house, like your chores?
I was a spoiled lady because I was the baby of the family. I wasn't taught how to cook or bake, or I never scrubbed the floor. What do you think of that? I don't recall making my own bed. Isn't that terrible? You wouldn't get away with that, would you?
Well, I don't really have a chore where I have to make my bed.
And, okay, now what else?
How did you spend your free time?
I read a lot. I did a lot of reading, and there were 2 schools in Chelsea. There was one in Upper Chelsea, we called it in those days, and one in Lower Chelsea. And when I read all the books in the school library in Chelsea, I'd get my cousin to bring me books from the school he went to in Upper Chelsea.
What was your schooling like?
My schooling? I went to grade 10 in Chelsea. Then I went to Bridgewater because you couldn't go to high school there. So then I went to Bridgewater. I boarded with a cousin. And then I went to Liverpool for grade 12 because my sister needed someone. She lived in there. She had children and she was taking night courses and she needed someone to babysit her children. So I was lucky there. But in both those places I had to walk very long distances to go to school. So that was why I was thin and skinny and good shape.
What is your first car that you remember liking?
My first car, I can remember a car that my sister's boyfriend used to come pick her up in, and it was a Willis Knight, and it was a beautiful car. And I thought, oh wow, I hope when I get big I'll have a boyfriend with a car like that. But you know what kind of a car my boyfriend had? He had a Model A, or a mod. What's the first model, Jamie? Was it an A or a T?
Geez, I can't remember. I think it was T actually.
Yeah. Well, it was a Ford, and it wasn't very fancy, and it was. I wanted to teach school, so my boyfriend, Harry Freeman, was going to drive me down to see the principal in Lunenburg. And I made him park several blocks away because I was ashamed of that old car we had. What do you think of that? Wasn't that being too proud?
Did you have a radio or television? What did you listen to or watch?
We had a radio. We had, wow, that was a nice big cabinet radio, but reception was very poor. But not everybody had a radio in Chelsea, I can tell you. We had people come there listen to back then, fighting. We had Joe Louis, a big fighter, and they would show this on, air it on the radio. And we had people coming there, a whole house full of people coming to listen to the fight.
Wow. What is your favorite kind of music?
My favorite kind of music? Not anything that I hear today. I like gold music. I like the old hymns. But I do like some country and western music.
When did you get married and how old were you?
I was too young. I was 19 and a half. I always have to put that half in there. It makes me seem like I was older. And I was married in June the 26th of what year? I can't even remember. I was married so long I forgot.
When did you start a family?
When did I start a family?
Or did you?
My first little darling arrived a year after we were married. And I had babies right up until I had Richard. And I was 38. What do you think of that?
That's older than my mom is.
Yes.
Did you play any sports?
I used to like to play ball. And I used to like to take part in school races, hurdle races they call them, where you run and you jump over ropes. Did you ever do that?
I did it at a fair thing.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I did that. I won a prize once at the sportsman show back at Malika Lake. I got a camera. I thought I had the world. Yeah.
That's cool. Was life easier or harder when you were younger?
It was harder. It's not for me, especially, I suppose, because I told you I didn't have to work. But other people, they didn't have self-clean ovens, for interest. My mother had to get in there with a scraper thing and scratch and clean. They didn't have all these automatic washers and dishwashers and clothes dryers. Clothes were scrubbed on a board like this and hung out on the line.
Who were your heroes or role models?
What was that?
Who were your heroes or role models? Could be off of TV.
My role models growing up?
And your heroes. Could
Oh
be off
my
of TV.
dear.
Too.
I don't know that I had a role model. Was I supposed to? Did I miss something?
You don't have to. Did you have any heroes? Like off of
Pardon
TV?
me?
Did you have any heroes, like off of TV or something?
No.
What was your favorite meal?
My favorite meal? I can tell you right now what my favorite meal was. I probably told Susan about it the other day. Fried cabbage and mashed potatoes. You don't do them anymore today.
What were the big news stories that you remember?
The big news stories? Well, I remember a big news story. I remember when the war broke out. That was, my brother was in the D-Day battle, and that was 75 years ago. It was a big, bad war. Lots of Canadian young men, 18, 20 years old, were, lost their lives. Very sad.
Who is the first prime minister that you remember?
First one. I was going to say Mackenzie King. I don't really know. I had so many prime ministers. I'm so old.
Did you have any friends that you've ever had since childhood?
I had one very dear friend, yes, and I had her all the while I was growing up in Chelsea, and I still communicate with her. She's married, of course, long ago and lives in Quebec.
What do you remember about your grandparents?
My grandparents, now that's a sad story because I didn't have a grandmother around. My grandmother Sloan White died when I was 2 years old, and my mother's mother, because as I told you, she was a home child that came here from England. I never met my grandparents, my mother's parents. I never met them because they lived in England. Wouldn't that be sad? You'd be sad without your Grammy and your nanny, wouldn't you?
I would.
And that's what it was like to grow up without Grammy and a nanny.
If you could change one thing in the whole world, what would it be?
I would want the whole world to be peaceful. I would want everybody to be getting along in our communities, in our towns, in our cities, in our wide countries, and everywhere in the world.
Hi, Grammy. Did you want to go home? Because I'm done for the day. Did you want to go home?
How was the world changed in your lifetime?
Oh, my dear. We had self-clean ovens. What can I say? We had telephones. We had automatic dishwashers and automatic clothes washers and dryers and all these things in my day. We got electric lights. When I taught school in Chelsea in the little one-room schoolhouse, we had no electricity, and I raised money by having concerts and things that we could have it wired when the electricity first came through. And that's how they got lights in the school in Chelsea.
Did you have any advice for young people today?
I would tell young people today to think about what they want to do, to start planning their lives, to think what they want to do when they're grown up and have to make their way in the world.
Did you ever travel when you were younger?
Oh my dear, we never even got as far as Bridgewater. Once a year we'd go on the back of a truck to Crescent Beach when I was in Chelsea, and we'd have a picnic. And that was the only time, till I told you I met the man with the Ford vehicle when I was 18.
Well, that's all I have for today.
Wow, that was was easy.